Here we are. It's Monday. It's our Monday live. And you may again start to see a truncated bench here. We've got Ian and myself. We might be joined a little bit later by our friend Coach, which will be good. We'd like to get Coach Williams in, talk about some things that are moving forward. May even have Paul join us. So who's to say? It could be a really fascinating time here. But Ian and I are going to try to do our best to answer some of your questions. Our friend Eric is at, let's face it, Monday Night Raw. He went to the wrestling today, take his son out to some combat sports, combat art, however you want to look at it. But we are going to be talking football a little bit today. Going to go over some of the practice stuff and hopefully answer your questions. Now, Ian, before we get into everything, you were just telling me some very exciting news, and that exciting news is that your children will be leaving the nest very, very soon. How much longer are you going to have them in your home?
A little more than 24 hours before.
A little more than 24 hours. And what is the general sentiment around the house with you and Kat?
Well, she's already started work.
Okay.
So she's right in the middle of it. She's working in a school district, so she's preparing for the kids to come in. So there's some stress there, some stress from the children.
Yep.
Going into a new school, because Laura Baker helped us move into this nice new house up in North Austin.
Yeah.
She can help you guys too if you would like to buy in the area. And I was showing my 4-year-old son the preschool room that he'll be in, and they had this little tiny couch. And he's like, "Look at this little couch." And I was like, "Hey, guess what, buddy? This is where you live now."
Wow. Wow. You made it really big for that. That transition is not dramatic.
He didn't like that.
No.
Nor did the wife, but I smoothed it. I smoothed it over.
Well, that's nice. It's good. It's good to have these little opportunities. My child is not going back to school until September, so we've got a lot more time to spend together and have a delightful summer. We do have a question already, Ian. Are you feeling up for it? This is actually, it's directed at you. This is our friend Football Junkie asking, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the front seven after the scrimmage? Obviously, it's a small sample size, but what's your takeaway?
It sounds like it's coming together exactly like you would have hoped, and like we've kind of prognosticated and speculated all offseason. They do not have the massive, powerful anchors inside that they did when they had Tavondre Sweat or Byron Murphy, or also like Keandre Coburn or Moro Ojimo on campus. The guys they have now up front are solid, but they're probably at their best when they're moving around. And then the guys that they have that are really worth featuring this year are Trey Moore and Anthony Hill, who the way you feature guys like that is you blitz them. So if you have defensive linemen who maybe are not extraordinarily powerful anchors but are really good at moving around, that pairs very nicely with blitzing linebackers, because you can move everybody around and create kind of gaps almost for the linebackers to attack on the blitz. And also beyond that, the best kind of secondary to have to play behind that is one where you can just play man across the board. It makes it very easy to draw up blitz packages that send Anthony Hill as often as not, because you're just picking up behind him with safeties that can cover in man and nickels and stuff. So there was an obvious direction for the defense to go in. It sounds like they're going in that obvious direction, which is great. It's not always happened in the 40 acres in the time since I've worked for Inside Texas. And it appears to be going well. So
when you're talking about moving around, can you expand on that a little bit? Are you talking about pre-snap alignment? Are you talking post-snap? All of the above?
More post-snap. Some pre-snap, but post-snap in terms of like defensive linemen slanting after the snap into a new gaps. Offensive linemen trying to track with them, following them with their eyes, only for the gap to be attacked by a blitzing linebacker, perhaps at an angle that was difficult to see. I think they're going to have stuff like that for days. They can even, I mean, honestly, Collins and Sorrell and Broughton, some of these guys are so mobile, they could like loop defensive linemen around to show up one or two gaps over from where they originally lined up. Collins did some of that, especially like in 2021, then they had to play him at defensive end. And it was remarkable how natural he looked doing stuff like that.
There's a lot of that makes sense to me from a linebacker position, filling those gaps. How does that movement affect a player like Moore?
A lot. He plays standing up generally, whether he's Sam and base or whether he's the buck edge. Even when he's on the line of scrimmage, he's going to be standing up. And so it's not hard for a guy playing like that. I mean, he can obviously just blitz the edge like a normal edge would, right? And just try to beat the tackle around the corner and get to the quarterback. But it's also when they're standing up and they're on the perimeter like that, it's really easy to move guys around and have them loop back inside and hit an interior gap. They've done that some in the last couple of years. It used to be like Pete Kwiatkowski's bread and butter at Washington, and it hasn't been as big a part of the playbook at Texas, maybe in part because they didn't have somebody like Trey Moore that would be particularly good at it. So Anthony Hill, obviously Anthony Hill's off the ball back, so he could show up just about anywhere. That's really easy to understand, right? But even Trey Moore on the line can still move around and show up almost anywhere.
One of the things that we've been talking a lot about is creating the continuity, as it were, between the secondary and the front seven. With that type of movement, how does that, and you mentioned going into a man, but how does that affect the front seven? Look at this dude.
My bad. I was writing a freaking article and I forgot about the time change. I'm like, oh, I better remember to get on there at 6. And it's like, I live in Colorado.
Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Wadlington has joined us. For those of you playing at home, he is in an entirely different country called Colorado. So he was able to, we're just so very lucky to have him. We were talking about the front seven here, Paul. And
I think we should play one.
Okay. That's great. I'm really glad for your contribution.
Ian's a big, like, hey, let's experiment with 11 defensive backs. I'm like, Ian, people will run the ball on us. And he's like, I don't think so. You have a very dated concept of football. And I was like, okay, I appreciate that criticism, but I think we need to play a front seven.
If you actually watch the NBA, Paul, you would know that I'm right.
Ian and I are currently debating, and we're both painting each other with the worst caricaturized opinion. Like, I'm pretending Ian thinks there's only 6 teams, and like all the best players are 6'6" Jewish guys with glasses. And then Ian is portraying it as if I think that Michael Jordan would average 45 points a game in today's soft game. So
this is coming from Victor, Mr. Santiago. Thank you for sending in this question. If you got any super chats or any questions, please send those in. But he's curious if we will see any position changes or quote experiments, especially with the injury to Baxter. And obviously, for those of you playing at home, CJ Baxter, our esteemed running back, will be out for the season. So I'm wondering, I think he's asking if we see anybody going to that position. I'm thinking perhaps Victor is considering something a la Roshan Johnson, but I don't necessarily think that's what we're going to be seeing this year. But what are your thoughts, boys?
Well, Sark did just say in his presser that they would be thinking creatively about what to do there. I got to wonder if that means like moving someone from a position that is very far from running back.
Are we thinking like a Henry Melton situation?
I would wonder if they would do something like a tight end.
Right.
That'd be the one that, I mean, everybody immediately speculates like, okay, who are the most athletic receivers and defensive backs that the team could spare to go play running back in the event that like 3 guys get injured, which
right. Okay.
That's like a fun mental experiment, but it's not a good way to coach a football team.
Well, let's have the mental experiment. Who would you move around and put into the running back position, maybe even from the tight end position?
I mean, I would pick someone like maybe Will Randall.
Okay.
Is there a tight end that's a good blocker in pass protection?
Yes, there's a better athlete too.
Well, is it somebody important now?
Juan Davis.
They're all important, Ian.
Juan Davis fits really well there, but I feel like that they're actually going to use him at tight end.
Yeah,
So
you can do both. I mean, you can actually hide him in some way. I mean, honestly, we don't know how he handles like carrying a ball, right? Our colleague, poor Drew Kelson, got gang pressed into playing running back early in his career. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Oh, yeah.
no.
Yeah, that happened.
No.
Yeah, I know the chat and the crowds are always clamoring for Silas Bolden. Guys, he's like 157 pounds. He's really game, and he's a tough little dude. And yes, he's going to carry the ball on some jet sweeps and on some end arounds. We don't want to line him up like run inside. It's not going to go great. But I would test out Juan Davis, not as like 60 carries over the season goal line back. I mean, literally as a pass protector primarily, who if they line up in like, well, you're not going to run the ball. Let's run a 6-man, a 5-man box. Could you hand it off to him and he gets 6-7 yards? I don't know actually, but he's a pretty good athlete. And then preferred walk-on Colin Page from Austin Anderson. I don't know if you guys know this, but Austin Anderson just turns out straight ballers. And a lot of people consider them the Duncanville of Central Texas.
Sure. Sure.
Colin Page is actually a good athlete and a good player. And I was told even before his little breakout that he's a good player. Obviously, there's a big difference between a preferred walk-on and a starter at running back particularly, right? But he's a guy actually I think the coaches could play in a pinch. I think they're just looking for true emergency situations. I don't know if you guys remember, was it 7-8 years ago, Ian, in LC, where Iowa was like cursed at the running back position? I think like 5 different running backs went down over the course of the preseason and season.
Yeah, didn't they have a kid that like his last name sounded like an Apple iOS operating system? I'm trying to remember his last name, but yeah, they were just basically throwing everybody in there.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's what they're doing here. We're not trying to establish Gillette as like 100 carry guy at our goal line back. That's not what's happening here.
But I think that question speaks to something deeper. Is there any lack of trust in that room? As far as I know, that's a pretty deep room, isn't it? Obviously, there's some inexperience, granted, but we are pretty strong there, aren't we? Is that something we need to worry about in terms of the running back room?
It could be. I mean, they're an injury to Jaden Blue away from having no surefire playoff caliber running back on the roster.
Right.
So, if we had a Kyle Porter,
that would do it.
It would solve all of our problems.
Wouldn't even be talking about this right now.
You're guaranteed 3 yards. You block it for 5, you're going to get 3.
That's all you need.
Do we
4 3-yard carries is a first down? That's
right. That's just good football. Tired of throwing the ball around like a sissy.
What are you with obviously this is again small sample size. Have you been able to glean anything? We talked about the defense earlier, talking about the front 7. Paul agrees that we should have one. Have you been able to glean anything that would lead you toward the coveted the coveted dime formation that you guys have been looking for?
Not from many of the reports.
Okay. This is really disappointing.
Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, they might have something like that in the works, but they're not tipping their hand about it.
They're probably not going to roll it out against Colorado State.
They're not going to do that either.
Probably not either against Michigan. I don't think we're going to play a lot of dime against Michigan, but could be interesting down the road. What's interesting is what would be the teams other than situational, obviously 3rd and 11 makes sense, or you're up by 14 and there's 6 minutes left in the 4th quarter. Let's roll out the dime on D. But are there any opponents that you would think, hey, this is a legitimate game plan you want to spend most of your snaps in? Mississippi State? Who else?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. But what about the idea that Seth Luttrell, I mean, kind of like as a joke in North Texas, they would call it the run raid sometimes, right? He's not averse to handing it off 40 times if that's where he sees the opportunity, right?
Yeah, but his tight end played quarterback 2 years ago and is not that big. So I just don't know. And their scrimmage reports out of Norman are grim for the offense.
Ian's smiling so big. He's so happy.
They're probably trying to throw it too much and more than they actually will in games. But I don't that feels like a team that they're going to keep doing their wide splits. I don't think that's going to go away with Luttrell. And I think you absolutely go into that game prepared to cheat their offense with your own gimmicky bits on defense.
Hey, if the reports on Jackson Arnold turning over the ball are true, I wonder if they're going to have to play a little slower than they want to with helmet communications and sort of walking him through the play before the play, right?
Well, I mean, ideally you would be doing that with a younger quarterback anyway, but you're saying that might even get a little bit slower as a result of.
Well, sometimes if it's younger quarterback is really comfortable running a style, you have like 3 plays called and they just keep running the same things over and hard. You're counting on the defense not adjusting, right? That's one form of hurry up. There's another where you actually have some stuff planned and game planned, which OU had last year with Levy against us. I mean, they did say what you want. Levy did a great job against us. And I wonder if they're going to, I just wonder if the temptation with a guy who turns over the ball is to kind of chat through the play with him a little bit as you call the play and say, remember, extra man blitzer's on you on this one, Jackson, rather than you just call something from the sideline signaled in and then he sprints to the line and they just keep running plays, which, has given Pete Kwiatkowski trouble at times when people do go hurry up on us. So
especially like to Paul's point, if they could script like 35 plays for him.
Yes.
And then have 35 plays where he's like repped it and knows the different contingencies. And then you could go into a game and only plan on running each play like 1.5 times because you slow down. That would be advantageous. If you're going fast, you actually need your quarterback to be able to run basic sound concepts. Because you're like, okay, go. We're going to run, whatever play that needs to work against every team and has 4 different options on it. And the quarterback knows which way to run it. If you have a young guy that you can't trust to do that, then you need everything to be much more scripted. And if you cannot script an 80-play offense, you have to go slow.
I wonder if, and this is changing the topic just a little bit, but because I know Paul to be such a Heisman enthusiast, I'm wondering, how do you feel about our preseason number 4 ranking, Paul?
Oh, you switched it up on me there. I feel good. I mean, I think we could reasonably be ranked anywhere between 1 and 10. Depends on where you view our upside. And you're 2 close losses away from not being a top 5 team, right? And Texas has a manageable schedule, but some key games on the road and the game we get at home against our best opponent, Georgia. I haven't seen Georgia evidence like road jitters or anything. I've seen them underperform on the road against like an inferior opponent, but it seems to me like in big games where there's a big spotlight, they seem to come to play. So I feel great about that ranking. It seems accurate-ish to me. I don't know, Ian. Do you think we should be number 3 or you're outraged, or number 1 or 2 you're outraged, or number 6? I don't know.
I haven't kept track of the polls since they unveiled the college football playoff format. Because what is the poll is meaningless. It has absolutely no bearing on.
It does. Here's why. I actually wrote an article about it on Inside Texas. Ooh, boom. It's a psychological anchoring before the season. And some of the teams, particularly that have easier schedules, who are overrated potentially, can sort of create a self-fulfilling prophecy of we made the playoff because we're a highly ranked team. And we're a highly ranked team because we never played anyone. Therefore, we're a playoff team. And I've kind of argued, I think you're probably not opposed to this, the idea that if Florida plays the schedule as tough as we think they're going to play, in other words, all those other teams live up to their billing, I think an 8-4 Florida has a better argument to be the last team in the playoff than a 10-2 Missouri that coasted through a pretty easy schedule.
Well, I'd love for you to expand on this idea.
That won't happen, by the way.
Specifically with Texas, specifically with this team under Sark, do they have the psychological fortitude to live up to that? Or is that going to be crushing for them?
I think they'll be okay.
Yeah.
They handled a lot of expectations last year quite well. They were a little bit flat in a couple of games, but that also coincided with their starting quarterback dislocating his shoulder. I think Oklahoma caught them for sure with the first punch in the Red River Shootout, but they found their feet and counterpunched really hard. So I don't really see signs of a team that's going to struggle with expectations or with being challenged. I think they're pretty used to that. It's going to be a different level, but yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say also, I think a common thing, the psychological part is we need to bring our A game, SECs, ramping it up. The thing is, if you watch other college football teams, they play C games all the time.
Sure.
And, Michigan to their, I would say they did a really good job typically week to week of playing to a standard, mostly because of their defense. But Alabama scraped by some really bad teams every week. The South Florida game was an abomination. They barely beat Arkansas, right? You can go on. Florida State had to struggle to get by Boston College. Thomas Castellanos, freaking tore them up. So we had our TCU. We had our games like that. So I guess the point is it's just going to happen. Georgia played down to Auburn. They played down to South Carolina. We're going to have those games. The key is winning them. Screw up. Yes, it's better to learn from that bad play with the win than getting freaking upset by Kentucky at home because you're looking ahead to Texas A&M.
Well, there's also, and you and I talked about this in this week's roundtable, Paul, but is there a game that you would look at that calendar and be like, you know what, that's a super sneaky trap game? Because I know you talked a little bit about UTSA. Do you still feel that way?
A little bit. Just in terms of talent, they may not be able to pull it off because some of their best talent is on our team.
It's true.
And on Oregon, they're going to be their corner is going to be starting for Oregon. But I think Kentucky, believe it or not, it's a home game. It's right before A&M, which is going to be a huge road game, obviously, for us, where our playoff berth may be hanging in the balance, or an SEC title game may be hanging in the balance. A&M, they may have a lot. If they were 3-8, they'd have a lot hanging in the balance, just the opportunity to beat Texas in College Station. So I think that's a potential overlook not because it's a trap game per se, but that Kentucky has some legitimate dudes. And if they have a couple of guys that level up or they can find solutions at some key positions, this is going to be a Kentucky team that could actually surprise, and particularly quarterback. If Brock Vandegrift is pretty good, not even great, Kentucky could be really good. So that could be a very interesting game for us.
Where do you land on that, Ian?
Yeah, Texas does not want to be in a position where they need to win the last two games of the year to be in the playoffs. The Kentucky A&M conclusion. They might be, but that's going to be a very difficult 2-game stretch for all the reasons Paul just said. They have to give A&M extra focus, probably multiple weeks in advance, because if you cannot go into College Station without treating that game with extra care in preceding weeks, because they're going to be in front of 100,000 fans out for blood. But then Kentucky is one of the more talented teams in the SEC, possibly, especially at positions like receiver and tackle that have a big impact on games. So that is a sneaky, difficult slate there. I would be very unsurprised if Texas lost one of those games. And I don't know which one would be worse to lose. I mean, in terms of the playoffs.
Right. I want to take a minute. We talked about this at the beginning, but we want to give a shout out to our friend Laura Baker, who has helped us all when I say helped us all, by bringing Ian back into Central Texas. But if you're looking for a home in the Central Texas area, please reach out to Laura. Laura's a UT grad. She's an IT member, so she's part of the family. She's also a part of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams. So please give her a call. The number is 512-784-0505. Again, that number is 512-784-0505. Let's give it up for Laura, guys. You had a really nice experience with Laura, Ian. In 3 words, explain that experience. But you can only use 3 words, and you have to answer in under 15 seconds. I'll start counting.
Thorough and indulging.
Oh, you're using and as one as well? Okay, fine.
Wow, we could have just used descriptives. You used an and. You threw away one of them.
Yeah, he did. But you know what? It's kind of it's
still good under pressure.
It's a brand. That's a on-brand Ian move, is what I'm saying there. He just combined those 2 things, made me look foolish.
Thorough, indulging, etc.
Right. Exactly. What are the okay? So we're about to get into. We've got what, 1 week left before we start getting into our install. Is that, or not our install, but our
game week
prep, our Rams prep.
A Rams prep. What are you guys doing to prep for the season? Anything in particular outside of just, showing up on time to these live casts?
Well, LC, I wrote a 157-page book with 55,000 words and over 25 amazing photos by Will Gallagher from Inside Texas. And in it, I break down the Texas Longhorns, the SEC, and all of our opponents. There it is. Amazing. You're the one who bought it. Thank you.
It's not. Oh, I found it. It was on.
You found it in the woods?
No, it's just in the dumpster down the street. It was amazing. This is really fortuitous. Ian, what are you doing? You're not writing any novels?
Oh, he writes novels. Tell him about the novels you write, Ian.
Let's take a second. What fan fiction would Ian write?
Oh, I already know.
Oh, you know the answer to this.
Not would. He has.
Okay.
Tell him, Ian.
I have a Substack called America's War Game.
That's not the one I'm thinking. I was thinking about writing. Aren't you like a Team Edward Twilight guy?
No. Much more specific genre.
Oh, that's not specific enough.
You guys.
He writes Bigfoot erotica.
There it is.
It's a fact.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's very exciting. It's a pity that I've missed that.
Oh, somebody corrected me in the chat.
Question here.
Et cetera is 2 words.
Yeah, we've got some very pedantic.
Let me give you 2 words in reply. Touche.
Oh, wow. Okay. Guys, we're just killing it today. I
we
think we all want to be Eric Nalin at Monday Night Raw. All right. We got plenty of depth in both positions, right? So, what is this? What is he talking about? All right. So how are we feeling about the chemistry between Golden and Ewers?
I think that there have been some reports that Golden performed well in the scrimmage, and he's very reliable for Ewers to find him. I mean, these are the kinds of things that you tend to hear about your slot receiver in general. Slot receivers in college football are very easy to feed the ball to. Golden is very talented. Moving the slot receiver should help him a lot. Interestingly enough, they didn't really use the position as much last year with Whittington, and maybe it'll change this year with Golden.
We keep it. Whittington and Golden, I think it's just obviously just based on the proximity of when one left and the other. There seems to be people trying to create analogs between the two. I mean, what are the similarities outside of, potential position? Although we've talked a lot, we may even see Golden on the outside. I mean, he seems like a much more versatile player. Is that a fair read on him, Paul?
So Golden is more dangerous on the move with the ball in his hands. Whittington was obviously really set back by his injuries. I think that diminished his ability as a runner a little bit. Golden is elite once he gets going with the ball in his hands. So he could add a dimension to a slot that we've not done a ton with in that regard. So that's big. He's an incredible kick returner. I mean, arguably the best in the country. So that's big. And then I would say as a blocker, I've never seen a slot that's a better blocker than Jordan Whittington. So,
right.
But I don't think Golden's bad in that regard. And he's kind of if you've ever seen him, he's kind of a jack dude.
He's big.
Part of it seems like one of the reasons sometimes he's like a Porsche. He's always got like a little something off, and he's in the garage getting repaired. But hopefully Texas can fix some of that and get a full season out of him, and maybe put him on a little bit of a workload. We've got a bunch of other receivers that are good, so let's try to spread the wealth with the snaps.
He's one of the guys that stood out to me at practice as being big and fast.
Is this a fair read on who we think our top 3 receivers would be? Golden, Bond, and Bolden?
Probably.
What additions or subtractions would you make there, Ian?
I mean, I think Cook and Moore are right there. And I don't know if they'll pass up the older transfers or not, but they could. You'd probably bet on Wingo as the guy that might force his way onto the field. But I think if they had to play Cook or Moore, it would not stand out as like a huge detriment to the team.
Right.
I think Wingo's the interesting X factor because he's a freshman, but he represents a physical type and a sort of overwhelming physical dominance in that type that no other receiver is like. I mean, the way that Bolden is going to hurt people and Bond are going to hurt people is very different from what Wingo can do. I mean, he's a physically dominant, sort of overwhelming player. And, the book on him was really talented athlete. It's going to take some time for him to learn the position and wide receiver. It's like, no, he's actually way ahead of schedule. So the coaches are going to just try to load up his plate and see how he responds. I mean, would anyone here be shocked if Wingo had 800 yards and 10 touchdowns at the end of the season?
Oh, no.
No,
I mean, so help me understand this. Is a player like Wingo, given that physicality, and this may be an obvious question or an obvious answer, but is this someone you would put on boundary or field? I mean, where would you want to put him to maximize that?
I would put him in the boundary. He's you can just kind of throw it up to grabs for him. Something amusing, Paul.
Eric really is at Monday Night Raw.
He is at Monday Night Raw. Yes.
I didn't know that. I thought you were joking.
No, man. It is. We went through the whole thing. It's the only acceptable excuse to miss this thing.
What a dork.
No, man. He's gonna take his kid to Monday Night Raw. That's pretty. That's
Awesome.
pretty dope.
I'm sorry.
I thought you were into the combat sports, Paul.
It's not real. We're gonna have a talk after this. I'm sorry, Elsie. We're gonna have a chat. We'll have a chat after. I got some things to tell you.
I don't know if you saw it, but one of the guys did this, and he entranced the other wrestler. So I don't know how you can say that's not real, Paul.
That's true. Or
all right, guys.
When they spit powder in someone's eyes.
I'm just saying, that is the report I'm really looking forward to, is when Eric gets back from Monday Night Raw. All right, guys. Is there anything else you guys want to add onto this? Oh, here we go. This is always a fun one. We're hearing about the drops. Somebody's got the dropsies. Hearing that Bond keeps having multiple drops, practice and first scrimmage. Is this a lack of chemistry with Quinn? Are they not going to TGA Fridays? Are they not hanging out enough after practice?
I'll tell you what. You go to Chili's, you can get the $10.99 deal right now. My son thinks that's fine dining. Dude. 3 items for $10.99.
Those chicken crispers.
Is it not?
You get an appetizer, you get a drink, and you get a main course.
Hmm.
Wow.
Pretty good deal, Ian.
There's a Chili's near my house that's just about to open, a brand new one.
I would keep your kids on the kids meal though. That's more cost effective. But yeah, you and let the wife order what she wants. Spoil her a little bit.
Oh wow.
Anything on the value menu, right?
This is great.
I will talk about the chemistry thing. So chemistry to me is he's not where he's supposed to be. It's not when the ball hits your hands, you're supposed to catch it. Doesn't really matter how you're feeling chemically at the moment. So,
right. Yeah. Okay.
But I do think, look, it's going to take some time. And I do think if Bond has a weakness, I think it's probably dropsies. And, is that something where it's 7% of his targets? That's fine. If it's 14% of his targets, we have a problem. So, we'll just have to see. And ultimately, I think you develop the most chemistry playing football together. And so Colorado State, I hope we throw the ball around. Like, there's no reason not to. Let's get everybody on the same page.
LC, what's your go-to Chili's order?
So it's the chicken crispers, the tenders, those things are just ridiculous. I mean, they're fantastic. I think you go with that, and then they do a bloomin' onion derivative that is sometimes nice, but I think that you got to go with the chicken crispers, tenders.
I do that, and I sub out the corn for a thing of the gourmet mashed potato.
Nice.
They're allowed to use the word gourmet on their menu.
Hey, Chili's does whatever they want.
Do what they want. Yeah,
800-pound gorilla, a retail restaurant.
Right. Well, hold on a minute. I think this is maybe a given, maybe not. I mean, Colton Vasek is going to play this season, right? I mean, I think he's kind of in an undeniable spot, right? Or do we think that's still up in question?
Well, so if you go by depth chart, he's sort of the fifth guy or sixth guy, right?
Yep.
I think over time he's going to play himself into the rotation, and I think he's going to have an impact probably this year. And then next year, I think he could be a potential breakout guy that we rely on. We have a lot of edge options. This is wild. Like, think about the long conversations we used to all have 2 years ago, sometimes even a year ago. I mean, a year ago we were fine on the edge, but it really showed against higher level pass blocking offensive tackles that we didn't have any answers. I mean, Vosick, Simmons, Moore, freaking Sorrell. Sorrell's gotten better every year. We've kind of like forgotten about this guy. And by the way, he wasn't making Bruce Feldman's freak list when he was a sophomore. I mean, he's just a guy who keeps leveling up and leveling up. Ethan Burke is really good. I mean, he's a 6'6" dude who those guys don't grow into their powers till later, right? I'm amazed at the number of options, the different body types, the different skill sets we have at edge. And I love Vosick. I think he's going to be a player.
All right, guys. Yes, we have talked about the injured player. This was a question that came in. We did talk about CJ Baxter and how might that role be remedied. We concluded that Ian thinks we're just going to move all of the tight ends back there. We're just going to go with a Mike Allstott type running back. We're just run over people. I think I would like to see that. I'm a big fan of Henry Melton, guys. When he was doing a running back, I thought that was really fun for me.
Oh, I couldn't stand that.
Well, that makes sense. You are so averse to fun. You would hate
that.
It.
It was not much fun when they hosted A&M in 2007, and Henry Melton kept dancing around the perimeter on 4th and 1 and 3rd and 1 and giving up possession to the Aggies. LC. Not much fun.
No,
someone wrote in the chat, my 2 favorite stud muffins live.
Yep. That's
3 of us, gentlemen.
It's clearly Ian and Paul.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. I think it is.
I don't know.
I really think it is. Okay, guys. We're getting up here toward our maximum time. Is there anything that you guys, I'm not going to cut you off, but if you got any questions, now's the time to get them in. Start typing really, really fast.
Hey,
for those of you that are
see, there are people talking about an injury in the chat. I don't think they're referring to Baxter.
Oh, they're not referring to Baxter. Okay.
We don't know. And one thing to remember is, dude, it's football. Like, there's guys limping off the field all the time. So That's just normal. We don't know the severity of injury. We don't know if someone's hurt or if someone's injured. So we will endeavor to find out.
Just to clarify,
I just made us $5.
Yeah. They were. That's how clear this needs to be made. Is that the muffins involved here are going to be Ian and Paul. So don't be coy, Paul. You can be late, but don't be coy.
Well, I feel like a gigolo now, and
I don't. You may not know what a gigolo does. That's not. It's okay.
A gigolo is someone who juggles. You idiot.
Yes, I understand. I'm well aware of their physical skills. All right, guys. We want to thank you for checking in. We're going to have practice updates all week. Please go ahead and check in on the board. If you are a member of the board and you're playing NCAA 25, your league starts today or tomorrow. Be sure to check with your commissioners. If you're not on the board and you want to play NCAA 25 with everybody, join Inside Texas. Go to InsideTexas.com and join. And you can play a video game as an adult with other adults online. It's something that we all aspire to as people with mortgages. Anything you'd like to add, boys? Nope. Good.